Welcome back to Hollow Street. This is the story of the dollhouse. It all started on Lily Patterson's 8th birthday. She was a quiet girl, with eyes that seemed to see more than most. Her parents, wanting to give her the world, gave her something even better, a perfect, miniature version of it. A magnificent dollhouse, custom built to be an exact replica of Hollow Street. Every house was there, from the old bookstore on the corner to their own two-story home. It even had tiny, porcelain dolls for every resident. Lily was enchanted. She spent hours arranging the little figures, creating stories, and whispering secrets into the tiny rooms. Her parents watched her play with a smile, happy to see her so absorbed. But a week after the dollhouse arrived, a subtle unease began to creep in. It started with small things. One evening, Lily's mother noticed the doll of their neighbor, Mr. Abernathy, placed on the miniature porch of his house, one arm raised as if waving. A few minutes later, the real Mr. Abernathy walked by their window, waving to her in exactly the same way. She dismissed it as a coincidence, a funny little quirk of timing. The next day, Lily was playing in the living room. Her father glanced over and saw that she had placed the tiny doll of Mrs. Gable, the town's most notorious gossip, whispering to the doll of the postman by the miniature mailbox. He chuckled. Later that afternoon, while watering the garden, he saw the real Mrs. Gable cornering the postman, her head bent close, her voice a low, conspiratorial buzz. The chuckle died in his throat. It was just another coincidence, he told himself. Kids are observant, that's all, but the coincidences kept piling up, becoming more specific, more unsettling. Lily would arrange the dolls in a certain way, and hours later, the scene would play out in real life on the actual Hollow Street. The doll of the baker's son would be placed near the miniature creek, and later, that day, the boy would be found skipping stones by the water. The doll of the librarian would be put in the attic of her tiny house, and she'd later complain about spending all afternoon cleaning out her dusty attic. Lily's parents started to watch the dollhouse with a mixture of fascination and dread. It was like a crystal ball, but instead of showing grand destines, it revealed the mundane, everyday life of their neighbors. They tried to ask Lily about it. "Sweetheart," her mother began one afternoon, "how do you decide where to put all the little people?" Lily just looked up from the dollhouse, her expression serene. "They show me where they want to go," she said simply, before turning back to her play. Her answer sent a shiver down her mother's spine. The game took a darker turn one Tuesday evening. Lily had been unusually quiet all day. Her parents found her staring at the dollhouse, her face pale. She had taken the doll of old Jedediah, the town recluse who lived at the very end of the street, and placed it inside the miniature woods that bordered the dollhouse. She laid it flat on its back, amongst the tiny, painted trees. When her father asked why Jedediah was lying down in the woods, Lily whispered, "He's tired. He's going to sleep for a long, long time." The next morning, news spread through Hollow Street like a cold fog. Jedediah was gone. He'd vanished from his home. A search party was organized. They scoured the woods, the same woods represented in the dollhouse, but found no trace of him. He was simply gone. Lily's parents looked at each other, a silent, terrifying understanding passing between them. This wasn't a coincidence. Not anymore. Panic began to set in. They thought about getting rid of the dollhouse, about smashing it to pieces. But a strange fear held them back. What if destroying the dollhouse made things worse? What if its power was tied to the town itself? The dollhouse sat in the corner of the living room, no longer a child's toy, but a malevolent oracle. A week later, it happened again. This time, it was a young couple, the Newtons, who had just moved to Hollow Street. Lily placed their dolls in the miniature car, facing away from the town, their tiny painted faces pointed toward the edge of the board. "They're going on a trip," Lily announced to her teddy bear. The Newtons were supposed to be hosting a barbecue that weekend. They never showed up. Their car was gone. Their house was empty. Friends and family were called, but no one had heard from them. It was as if they had driven off the face of the earth. The disappearances cast a pall over Hollow Street. Doors were locked earlier, and the once friendly streets grew quiet and suspicious. Lily's parents were living in a private nightmare. They watched their daughter, this innocent child, unknowingly predict the town's slow decay. They were trapped, terrified to speak of what they knew, for who would believe them? That a child's toy was orchestrating the vanishing of their neighbors. They had to do something. They couldn't let this continue. One night, after Lily was asleep, her father crept into the living room. His heart hammered against his ribs as he approached the dollhouse. It seemed to loom in the moonlight, its tiny windows like 100 watching eyes. He reached out, his hand trembling, and picked up one of the dolls. It was the doll of himself. It felt cold, unnervingly heavy in his palm. He looked at the miniature version of his own house. The front door was slightly ajar. With a surge of desperate courage, he took his own doll and the dolls of his wife and Lily. He placed them inside the tiny car, just as Lily had done with the Newtons. He pointed the car away from Hollow Street, toward the edge of the world. He then gently closed the door of the miniature house and walked away. The next morning, without a word, he started packing their bags. His wife watched him, her eyes wide with fear and a glimmer of hope. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "We're going on a trip," he replied, his voice strained. "A long one." They woke Lily, telling her they had a surprise vacation. They packed the car in a frantic haze, constantly glancing over their shoulders at the quiet, watching houses of Hollow Street. They didn't take the dollhouse. They left it there, a silent, waiting monument to the people it had claimed. As they drove away, Lily looked out the back window. Her father watched her in the rearview mirror. He expected to see sadness or confusion. Instead, a small, knowing smile played on her lips. She looked past their own retreating street, her gaze fixed on the town of Hollow Street itself, as if it were nothing more than a toy she had decided she was finished playing with. They never went back. They never spoke of the dollhouse or of Hollow Street again. But sometimes, in the dead of night, Lily's father would wake up in a cold sweat, haunted by a single, terrifying thought. They had escaped? Yes, but what happened when a new family moved into their old house? What happened when another little girl found a beautiful, perfectly preserved dollhouse, just waiting in the living room for someone new to come and play? The story of Hollow Street is never truly over. It just waits for new players. Thanks for listening. If you're intrigued by the mysteries of our town, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You never know what story will unfold next. Until next time, be careful what you play with.